I have been in insurance marketing for over a decade. My team and I have managed over $100 million in ad spend across Medicare, life insurance, final expense, auto, solar, and home services. I've also built 3 companies in this space, including a multi-8-figure agency and a technology platform. And here's 10 years of insurance marketing advice in the next 10 minutes. Piece of advice number 1, stop chasing and start attracting. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the traditional lead gen model has you buying a list and spending your entire day dialing through it, calling people who filled out a form 3 days ago, most of whom do not even remember doing it. Half of them have already talked to 5 other agents before you even got to them. And so what ends up happening is you're not actually selling insurance most of the day. You are doing unpaid telemarketing for people who do not want to hear from you. Most agents do this for years because they think that this is how the game works. Grind through the list and hope you catch someone at the right time. One of my first jobs before I started in pay-per-call was actually I got my real estate license, and I got this list of insurance of real estate investors, and I was supposed to just pitch out deals to them, where I worked with this fund where we would go find deals and houses for them to basically wholesale real estate at scale. And even then, I'm basically selling money to people and selling opportunities to people. But even then, when you're just chasing people on the phone, what I found and what kind of led me down this path as well is that you're not in a position of power, right? When you're chasing them, when you're calling them, you're already immediately in the weak point, versus when they call you, when they've expressed interest to you, you now control the conversation a little bit better, right? Which definitely helps the sales cycle as well. And that's a big thing that's kind of led us to building our platform, right? Because when the prospect calls you, instead, when someone picks up the phone and dials your number because they saw something that made them interested, they already know what the conversation is about, right? Versus you initiating and you chasing them, right? They initiated, so they're open to buying. Think about it like walking into a car dealership, right? You are already in a buying mode, right? When you walk into a car dealership, you don't need convincing that you need a car. You just need to find the right one. And that's exactly what inbound calls feels like. The prospect already did the hard work of deciding they need insurance. Now they just need to find the right agent. That shift from outbound to inbound changes everything. Close rates goes up, stress goes down, and you're actually having real conversations instead of begging people to stay on the phone. So stop chasing people who do not want to talk to you and start building systems where qualified people are calling you. Piece of advice number 2 is speed to lead is everything. And what I mean by this is you are 100 times more likely to connect with a lead if you respond within 5 minutes. Every 30 minutes after that, the odds drop dramatically. So if a call comes in and it bounces around or goes to voicemail or nobody picks it up for a few minutes, that person is going to call the next agent on their list and you just lost them. Most agents think the solution is to just hustle harder, wake up earlier, or dial faster. Just look at it through a different lens. Because if you do not have a system that routes calls instantly to whoever's available, you're always going to be leaving money on the table. It's like having a store with amazing products, but the door is locked half the time. People want to give you money, but you're making it impossible for them to do so. So the bottom line is that speed is a system problem, not a hustle problem. Piece of advice number 3 is stop obsessing over cost per lead. Everyone in this industry asks what your cost per lead is, how to get cheaper leads, and who has the best rates. But CPL does not tell you anything about profit because it is just a vanity metric. And I see agents obsess over this number while completely ignoring what actually matters. For example, a $5 lead that never picks up the phone is actually infinitely more expensive than a $50 call where someone actually wants to talk, is qualified, and closes. Because that $5 lead gave you nothing. 0 revenue, 0 commissions, just wasted time and frustration. Meanwhile, that $50 call turned into a policy that paid you $500. That's a potential 10x return on your ad spend. And so the metric that actually matters are cost per conversation, cost per qualified call, and cost per sale. Because that's what tells you if you're making money or losing money. So track the full funnel, not just the top. Piece of advice number 4 is compliance will make or break your business. And I mean that literally. I've seen agents and affiliates cut corners to get cheaper leads, run some shady ad, work with sketchy sources, and then they get their entire business nuked. And it only takes one bad ad or one complaint to the regulator and you're done for good. I've seen some of the biggest affiliates and networks in this space, guys that I know personally that were doing hundreds of millions of dollars, get caught running one ad where the entire business was just shut off overnight because of that. And so in order to make sure this does not happen to you, review calls regularly to make sure your team is staying compliant. Vet every partner before you work with them. because their mistakes become your mistakes. And always know exactly what your ads are saying before they go live. This is especially true if you're in Medicare or ACA, where regulators are watching everything. So do not cut corners on compliance, because it is what keeps you in the game. Piece of advice number 5 is build systems, not schedules. When you're not hitting your numbers, the first instinct is to just do more. Wake up earlier, stay later, make more dials. And that works to a point, but there's a ceiling to how much you can personally produce. And if you're the one making all the calls, you can realistically handle maybe 30 to 40 conversations a day before your voice just gives out. Even if you're closing at 20%, that's 6 to 8 sales a day max. That is your ceiling. You cannot outwork that number because there's only so many hours and you only have one mouth. But when you have a system that works for you, the calls come in automatically because your ads are running. Those calls get routed to whomever is available, not just you. And every call is recorded, scored, and tracked back to the exact ad that produced it. So you know your cost per conversation, your close rates, your revenue per call, all in real time. And you can see exactly what is working and cut what is not. And you can bring on more people without the whole thing falling apart because the system holds the knowledge. That is the main difference between a business and a job you created for yourself. Piece of advice number 6 is qualify before you sell. Because if you get on a call, spend 30 minutes building rapport, going through the presentation, answering objections, doing everything right, only to find out that the person is not in your licensed state, or they're on Medicaid and do not qualify, or they're just shopping with no intent to switch, that is 30 minutes you're never going to get back. And if that happens 3 or 4 times a day, you just lost half your selling time on people who are never going to buy. So you need to qualify people before you ever get on the phone with them. You want to know if they're in the right age range for the product you're selling, if they're in a state you're licensed in, and if they even have a bank account so they can actually pay. This takes all but 2 minutes. And you can do it with a short form, an IVR, or a quick pre-call text. The point is to filter out the people who cannot or will not buy before they ever reach your sales team. And when you do this, your close rate goes up because you're only talking to real buyers, and your revenue per hour goes through the roof. Piece of advice number 7. Just follow up. Not everyone buys on the first call. They need to think about it, talk to their spouse, check their budget, compare some options. And what happens with most agents is that they get off that first call. The prospect says, let me think about it, and the agent moves on to the next lead. Maybe they make a note to follow up, but then new leads come in. Things get busy, and the last prospect falls through the cracks. And these are people who already expressed interest, took the time to get on the phone, and even heard your pitch. They're very warm leads. And most people are letting them go cold because they got distracted. And the fix is pretty simple, which ties back to my previous point. You need to systemize your follow-up so it happens automatically. So every prospect who does not close gets put into a sequence where they get a text thanking them for their time. Then a few days later, they get a call to check in, then another touch after that, and it keeps going until they either buy or tell you to stop. But like I said, most people don't do this. And that's good news, because that also means your competitors aren't probably doing this either. So the agent who actually follows up is one who closes the deal 2 weeks later. Every lead you already paid for is an asset, and you spent money to get them on the phone. Do not let that investment rot just because they did not buy in the first 30 minutes. So work that lead until they convert or tell you no. And that's it. 10 years of insurance marketing advice in 10 minutes. Now go take everything you just learned and apply it to your business. And if you want to skip the part where you build all of this yourself and you just want qualified calls coming in every day without chasing leads, that's exactly what we built our platform for. So I'll leave a link below where you can book a free demo with my team. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.